Right, welcome back to the Young Fan Podcast and welcome to this match reaction for Oxford United as they travel to Exeter City on this Saturday afternoon in Sky Bet League One. Scored 4 goals and won the game 4-2. Did I expect this result? Absolutely not. Did I expect this performance? No, not really. I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't. I think we were absolutely brilliant this afternoon. I was really, really impressed. I think Karl Robinson, he got it right. He did get it right. The players were absolutely on it from minute 1 until minute 90. There's a few sloppy mistakes. The 2 goals are a little bit frustrating. The second goal in particular that we conceded was a little bit sloppy. We'll come on to that in a little bit more detail in just a second. But looking at that first half, we were really, really good. We put out a statement and it felt like we needed a reaction. And I think we got one. I did think we got one. We needed one. And the players, the manager, the coaching staff, they got it right this afternoon. They got it right, and I saw it. I spoke to a couple of people. Of course, people have been speaking to me over the week, and I've done sort of different previews and predictions. Spoke to lots of different fans, Oxford, Exeter, and people at football clubs across League One. And they always said, sort of, how are you feeling? And the confidence must be quite low, and it was quite low. And look, this does not paper over the cracks. This is a really good afternoon where we've earned 3 points. We've just got to do one thing and use it as a springboard. We've got to use this as a springboard, and we've got to build on it. But people, of course, as they always do, and as football fans, we always question each other and how we're feeling going into a Saturday or going into a match day. I wasn't confident. And the reason for that was, one, I know the strength of Exeter. I know the quality that Exeter have got. They've had a really good start to the season. Away from home as well. This is, it's a challenge. We know the home advantage is definitely there. And most importantly, Oxford have not been good enough. We've been really, really bad. Home and away so far this season, we have not been up to scratch at all. The results, just look at the league table. They've been very, very bad. The performance levels have been really, really poor. And we needed this more than anyone, ultimately, more than Exeter. Let's be completely honest with you. This was a must-win for Oxford. And of course, Exeter wanted to win the game, and of course, Exeter would want to try and really pile on the misery and smell blood. I'm sure that was the game plan. Smell the blood of Oxford, look at the weaknesses, because there have been quite a few, and capitalise on it. And when I say Oxford needed it more than Exeter, that don't take that the wrong way, Exeter fans. What I mean by that is, look where Oxford are in the league table, look where Exeter are. They're having a cracking campaign so far, and Oxford, I might rephrase it actually. I think Karl Robinson needed this more than anybody. I think Robinson needed this more than anybody. I think he needed a result because he knew his job is in, and still is, I still believe, is still up for debate. And that's what I mean by let's not paper over the cracks here. This was a really good afternoon, and you've got to give credit where credit is due. The players, the manager, everybody around this football club, because they are a big part in this result, definitely deserve the credit. However, there were certain things, if we're being quite, well, not picky, but the goals we conceded were a little bit poor, a little bit sloppy. But going forward, and that's what you can't argue with, because we've been very, very critical, and rightly so, with the fact that going forward this season, we haven't been good enough. We've been really, really, we've been lacking tempo. We haven't had that clinical edge. The lack of movement has been a big problem. The wide players haven't been able to get themselves out into the game. The wing backs that Karl Robinson sort of built his real philosophy and style of play off of playing really high and wide. We haven't had that. We felt like we did have that this afternoon. The wide players, Sam Long had a good game, of course, scored. And that wasn't just the goal that proved he had a great game. I think he actually looked really good on the ball. He's had quite a poor start to the season. I think he'll probably admit that, but he did build into the game actually. I think did do a really good job. I thought Cameron Brannagan, it was a brilliant free kick and the perfect start. And actually, I think that really did help us, getting an early goal. And that's something we haven't been able to do. We haven't scored early in games, really, this season. And we had something to hang on to. We didn't hang on to the game, but we had something to hang on to and build off of. We got that goal, and we went, right, it's a brilliant free kick, by the way. We got hold of the game, I think, at that point, and we started really strong. We started the better side. The goal was deserved. It came, I got the time of the goal. I want to say sort of 15 minutes into the game. 12 minutes, actually, a little bit earlier than I thought. In those first 12 minutes, we definitely were the better side, really dominant, and we scored. And that, for us, And for Oxford was really key because it then gave us something we could really, like I say, build on and grow into. And we certainly did that. Sam Long scored about 10 minutes later. And just before half-time, Kyle Jospeh. And again, I think I've got an idea for the title. I've got to, again, give credit to Joseph and for people that have been quite critical of him in recent weeks. I'm not going to be this sort of fickle football fan that goes, right, we won the game 4-2. Robinson is the man to do it. We're going to get in the top 6. Joseph, this is the type of player that we need and always have needed. Let's not go stupid with this. We haven't been good enough up to this point. And even Robinson will admit that. Kyle Jospeh will admit that really his performances, and he hasn't been very impactful since he joined, ultimately, when he did. A month or so ago. And so this game does not cover up, like I say, paper over what has been a bad start to the season. But what it does do is give us something to work with. And again, I use the word springboard. It gives us something to sort of go, right, there's a lot of positives from that. We were very expansive. We were very fluid. I thought from the defence, free midfield, that transition was great. The front three of Taylor, of Joseph and Marcus Brown worked really well. Brown didn't get a goal, but I thought when he got hold of the ball, he did look quite lively. Out of the three, I think, of Matty Taylor and Marcus Brown, Taylor unlucky not to score, but I thought he had a much better game. Joseph was a standout in that front three, scoring two goals. I mean, the second goal was really good. I mean, it was poor from Exeter. Nobody sort of got a foot in. He was allowed to drive and hold on to the ball for way too much, and he scores into that bottom left. Cameron Brannagan had a really good game. Henry deserves a huge shout-out. He did really, really well. Marcus McGuane did what he does best, be very powerful in that midfield, win fouls, drive at players, cause problems, be good in transition, create and also break up the play as well. Like I say, Sam Long, Elliot Moore, Stuart Finley, Kieran Brown, that back four actually did look quite good. They were quite sloppy with the goals they conceded, and I'd be frustrated that clean sheet and that 4-2 does slightly tamper the scoreline, actually the performance that we put in. But ultimately, that's something to work on, and there are definitely aspects that we do need to look on and get better at. But we knew that because look where we're on the league table. It does only take us up to 19th, but again, we've got a really difficult run ahead of us. We've got Peterborough next, we've then got Bolton, Portsmouth, then Bolton, so we've got a really, really difficult run of games coming up, and this is now make or break, and we knew that. We knew it was going to be make or break. And for Robinson now, he can, he's got this result, he's got this performance, and he's now got to take it into the home game next Saturday against Peterborough United. And that has to now be the focus. That has to be the focus. We can't get sort of all excited or giddy about it. We need to stay calm in this situation, and we will. And as fans, I think most fans should and will stay be excited. And look, we've now scored 13 goals this season. Before this, we only had 9 goals. Alongside Morecambe, who are bottom. Going forward, we were absolutely blunt. We couldn't do it, could we? With the movement, the finishing, the creativity, it was lacking so much. But now we can go right. We can score 4 goals in a game. We can be 3-0 up at half time. We can play high and wide. We can actually create space and be very creative within that space. And that has to be ticks everywhere for Oxford. And for Karl Robinson, that has to be tick, tick, tick. And we looked actually really explosive, I thought, in those forward areas, which is something that we haven't been able to do. I actually think, and like I say, I'm talking about apologies, Kyle Jospeh, maybe on that right-hand side, that could work. That could work. He's not a central midfielder. And when I spoke about Joseph, and when I was quite critical of him, I was quite critical of him because he was playing as a centre midfielder. And that isn't completely his fault. That was a stupid team selection, tactical decision from Karl. But maybe as a right-sided attacker, quite narrow actually, it was more sort of right forward, that could work. And if it does work, then brilliant. It worked this afternoon. So that has to be something that we look back on. As for Exeter, I watched them play on Tuesday against Charlton. They actually looked good. Actually, it's only quite patronising. They did look good, and you look at their league table standing. They again are in a really good place for a newly promoted side. They look good against Charlton. They lost that game 4-2 as well. They didn't look good this afternoon, if I'm being honest. I was actually watching it with an Exeter fan, and quite rightly, he was not happy with the performance. And like I said, that first half, they were heavily dominated by Oxford. And the Oxford United of previous seasons where we like to have the ball and we actually are pretty ruthless with the way that we come forward. We look like every time we do attack, we look quite threatening. That was what we saw from Oxford today. And we need more of it. we do need more of it. But it won't be easy because Peterborough, I think they did lose actually to Wycombe today. They're not going to be a side that are going to be a rollover. And Exeter, we didn't think were going to be either. And they weren't, really. For the last sort of 20 minutes of the game, they were the better side. I think Oxford got a little bit complacent, but that's always going to happen. It shouldn't happen, but it very normally does. But yeah, Exeter weren't great. I thought in possession that they were quite sloppy. The midfield for them wasn't as strong as I think they need to be in this type of game. I think we won the midfield battle, and people say that the games were won and lost in the midfield. I thought we were pretty strong at doing that. So ultimately, I think that's probably where the game was won. And then you look at the goal scorers, you look at Kyle Jospeh, you look at the other aspects of it. We also did look really good in that as well. So look, really, really happy with it. I'm not going over the top. The word apologise. I'm not going to say sorry for being critical of players and being critical of a manager, and then they go and shut me up with a 4-2 win. I want them to shut me up. Please do that. I want Kyle Jospeh to be the top goal scorer in Sky Bet League One. Go and do it, Kyle. I don't think you're going to do it. And that's not because I don't think you're good enough. That's because you've got people like Johnson Clark-Harris and you've got other players in this league. But, look, I'm going a little bit off topic there. Kyle Jospeh, maybe that's the area for him. If it is, brilliant. Because he looked really, really good in that position today. And he ultimately, with his 2 goals, he won us the game. Without those 2 goals, we draw the match. So, fair play to him. He definitely deserves the credit. Karl Robinson as well, I've written down here, my final talking point. Robinson, does he buy time now? He deserves to buy time. You can't sack a manager after losing 4-2. I said it before. I probably wouldn't sack him after the Exeter game. I said that actually before the game kicked off. Maybe the fan in me would say if we lose today, then it probably should happen. But the sort of more relaxed side of me should probably go, look, we've probably got to give him till the end of the month, and that month's very difficult, but that does give him an opportunity to show what he can do in those big games, in those tough games, in the games we're going to definitely be underdogs. So look, we win this game 4-2, Peterborough next, then Portsmouth, then Bolton. It's going to be a very, very big challenge for him, and I hope that he does come through this, because we don't want to sack a manager. Because that is a direct indication that we have not been good enough. And if we've not been good enough, we're not in a good league position. Again, it's not a very good season, and it sort of, the whole football excitement as a fan gets drained out of you, doesn't it? If you lose a game of football, and if you don't put in the performances and have a good league position and drive towards the areas where things do get exciting, i.e. the playoffs. I don't think we're going to get in the playoffs. I'm not going to be that fan that goes, oh my God, we won 4-2, let's start buying tickets for Wembley Stadium come May. That's going too far. I think every Oxford fan is going to be definitely not naive enough to think that. So, look, things to build on for sure, but certainly big positives, big credit, and a good afternoon, a really, really good afternoon. Why couldn't you have done it against Wycombe when I came home for the weekend? Well, that'll be a talking point for another time. I'm not bothered now, though. I am bothered because that was a really disappointing result, and we shouldn't forget about that. But I'm very happy now. And next Saturday, we've got Sutton, I believe, in a competition. It's at the Papa John's on Tuesday. But I think everybody should be looking at Saturday against Peterborough, and that's a big game. I look forward to it. Right, I've been Jack. This has been the Unfan Podcast roundup for most of the league game. Most of them, because Charlton and Portsmouth haven't played yet. But of course, we've got a dedicated video for that as I'm at the game on Monday. So a roundup on Sunday, tomorrow, as you're watching this, and I'm recording this, should be around 11-12 o'clock tomorrow as well. So it's going to be really exciting. Some big shocks in League One. Ipswich losing to Lincoln. That's going to be a game we can chat about, and many others as well. Have a good rest of your Saturday, because I'll see you on Sunday. And take care. See you in a bit.